The 1979 romantic comedy Starting Over gave audiences hope that second chances at love were always possible. Directed by Alan J. Pakula and starring Burt Reynolds, Jill Clayburgh, and Candice Bergen, this beloved film explored the tender complexities of divorce and new beginnings. Yet behind the movie's optimistic message lay a heartbreaking irony. Many of the talented actors who brought these characters to life would face their own final chapters far too early. From the leading man's unexpected heart attack to a co-star's decades-long battle with leukemia, their stories remind us that even in Hollywood, not every story gets a happy ending. Burt Reynolds brought a warmth and vulnerability to his role as Phil Potter in Starting Over that surprised audiences who knew him mainly as an action hero. Playing a recently divorced magazine writer trying to rebuild his life in Boston, Reynolds showed a gentler side that earned critical praise and reminded everyone that beneath his tough guy persona was a genuinely talented actor who could handle comedy and drama with equal skill. Born Burton Leon Reynolds Jr. on February 11, 1936, in Lansing, Michigan, Reynolds grew up dreaming of football stardom rather than Hollywood fame. He earned a football scholarship to Florida State University, where he played halfback until a series of knee injuries and a car accident ended his athletic career and changed the direction of his life forever. Looking for something to fill the void left by football, Reynolds discovered acting almost by accident when a professor suggested he try out for a play, and he found himself drawn to the stage in ways he never expected. Reynolds started his career in television during the late 1950s and early 1960s, appearing in shows like Riverboat and landing a regular role on Gunsmoke as the half-Comanche blacksmith Quint Asper. His rugged good looks and natural charisma made him a television favorite, but it was his breakout role in 1972's Deliverance that established him as a major movie star and showed audiences he could handle serious dramatic material alongside the action roles that would define much of his career. Throughout the 1970s and early 1980s, Reynolds became one of Hollywood's biggest box office draws with films like Smokey and the Bandit, The Longest Yard, and Cannonball Run. He was the #1 box office star in America for 5 consecutive years from 1978 to 1982, a record matched by few actors in Hollywood history. His charm and self-deprecating humor made him a frequent guest on talk shows, and his famous nude photo spread in Cosmopolitan magazine in 1972 cemented his status as a sex symbol and cultural icon. Starting Over represented something of a departure for Reynolds, who worked with director Alan J. Pakula to tone down his usual swagger and show a more vulnerable, introspective side of his screen persona. The performance earned him some of the best reviews of his career, even though he was notably snubbed when both his leading ladies, Jill Clayburgh and Candice Bergen, received Oscar nominations while he did not. Reynolds later admitted this oversight hurt him deeply, but the film remains one of his most respected performances and showed his range as an actor. On September 6, 2018, Reynolds died of a heart attack at Jupiter Medical Center in Florida at the age of 82. According to director Quentin Tarantino, Reynolds had been cast in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and spent his final morning running lines with his assistant before suffering the fatal heart attack. Reynolds had been looking forward to the role and was excited about working with Tarantino, making his sudden death all the more poignant for those who knew him. Burt Reynolds left behind a legacy as one of the most beloved entertainers of his generation. An actor who could make audiences laugh, cheer, and even cry when the role called for it, proving that true movie stars are defined not just by their biggest hits, but by their willingness to take risks and show different sides of themselves. Jill Clayburgh. Jill Clayburgh's performance as Marilyn Holmberg in Starting Over showcased her remarkable ability to bring depth and authenticity to complex female characters, earning her a second consecutive Oscar nomination, and cementing her reputation as one of the most talented actresses of her generation. As the neurotic but caring nursery school teacher who helps Burt Reynolds' character heal from his divorce, Clayburgh created a character who was both vulnerable and strong, funny and heartbreaking, showing audiences why she had become such an important voice for women's stories in Hollywood during the late 1970s. Born on April 30, 1944, in New York City, Clayburgh grew up in a wealthy family where her mother worked as a theatrical production secretary for legendary Broadway producer David Merrick, giving young Jill early exposure to the world of entertainment. Her father was a vice president at a bookcloth manufacturing company, and while the family had money, Clayburgh later described feeling like she didn't quite fit in with her privileged background, which may have contributed to the outsider quality that made her such a compelling screen presence. After graduating from Sarah Lawrence College, where she studied history and discovered her passion for acting, Clayburgh moved to New York to pursue a career on the stage, working in repertory theater, and eventually making her way to Broadway. Her early television work included roles on soap operas like Search for Tomorrow, and she spent several years building her craft while dating fellow actor Al Pacino, whose career was taking off at the same time. Their 5-year relationship ended in the early 1970s, but both actors remained supportive of each other's work throughout their careers. Clayburgh's breakthrough came with her starring role in 1978's An Unmarried Woman, where she played a comfortable Manhattan wife whose world falls apart when her husband suddenly leaves her for a younger woman. The film, directed by Paul Mazursky, captured the changing attitudes toward women and divorce in the late 1970s, and Clayburgh's performance was widely praised for its honesty and emotional complexity. She won the Best Actress award at the Cannes Film Festival and received her first Oscar nomination, establishing her as a major star and an important voice in women's cinema. Following her success in An Unmarried Woman, Clayburgh's role in Starting Over proved she could handle both drama and comedy with equal skill, and her chemistry with both Burt Reynolds and Candice Bergen helped make the film a critical and commercial success. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, she continued working in film, television, and theater, appearing in movies like It's My Turn and Rich in Love, while also taking on challenging stage roles and earning Emmy nominations for her television work. In 1989, Clayburgh was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, a form of cancer that affects the blood and bone marrow, but she kept her illness private and continued working for more than 2 decades while managing her condition. Her husband, playwright David Rabe, later said she dealt with the disease courageously and used it as an opportunity to teach their children about life and resilience, never letting her illness define her or limit her professional commitments. Clayburgh died peacefully at her home in Lakeville, Connecticut, on November 5, 2010, surrounded by her family after her 21-year battle with leukemia. She was 66 years old and had continued acting almost until the end, appearing in films and television shows that showcased her enduring talent and professionalism. Jill Clayburgh's legacy lives on through her honest, nuanced performances that helped redefine how women were portrayed on screen, and her courage in facing both personal and professional challenges with grace and determination. Charles Durning. Charles Durning brought warmth and wisdom to his role as Mickey Potter, Burt Reynolds' supportive older brother, in Starting Over, creating a character who served as both comic relief and emotional anchor throughout the film. His performance as the well-meaning family man trying to help his divorced brother navigate the complexities of dating again showcased Durning's remarkable ability to make even small roles memorable, and his scenes with Reynolds demonstrated the kind of genuine brotherly chemistry that made audiences believe these two very different actors were actually related. Born on February 28, 1923, in Highland Falls, New York, Durning grew up in a large Irish Catholic family during the Great Depression, experiencing hardships that would shape his character and later inform his acting. His father, an Irish immigrant who had been wounded in World War I, died when Charles was only 12 years old, leaving his mother to raise 10 children while working as a laundress at the nearby West Point Military Academy. 5 of Durning's sisters died in childhood from diseases like scarlet fever and smallpox, tragedies that taught him early about loss and the importance of family bonds. When World War II began, Durning was drafted into the army at age 20 and found himself landing on the beaches of Normandy during day, where he witnessed some of the most brutal fighting of the war. He was wounded multiple times during his service, including being shot in the hip and later taking a bullet to the chest, and he survived the infamous Malmedy massacre, when German soldiers opened fire on American prisoners of war. For his courage under fire, Durning received the Silver Star and 3 Purple Hearts, decorations that he rarely spoke about in later years because the memories were too painful to revisit. After returning from the war, Durning worked a series of odd jobs while trying to find his place in civilian life, including teaching ballroom dancing, working in a button factory, and serving as an usher at a burlesque theater in Buffalo, where he first discovered his love of performing. When a drunk comedian failed to show up for his act one night, Durning stepped in to fill the gap and found that making people laugh helped heal some of the wounds left by his wartime experiences, setting him on the path toward a career in entertainment. Durning spent years honing his craft in regional theater and off-Broadway productions before making his film debut in 1965, but it was his breakout role in 1973's The Sting that established him as one of Hollywood's most reliable character actors. His performance as the corrupt Lieutenant Snyder opposite Paul Newman and Robert Redford led to a string of memorable supporting roles in films like Dog Day Afternoon, The Muppet Movie, and Tootsie, where his light-footed dancing as the governor in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas earned him an Oscar nomination and surprised audiences who had no idea that the heavyset actor was such a graceful performer. Throughout his career, Durning appeared in more than 200 films and television shows, working steadily well into his 80s and becoming known as one of the most dependable and professional actors in the business. He often played authority figures, fathers, and working-class characters who brought both humor and humanity to whatever story he was telling, and directors valued his ability to elevate any material through his natural warmth and genuine screen presence. Durning died of natural causes at his Manhattan home on Christmas Eve, December 24, 2012, at the age of 89, surrounded by family and friends who remembered him not just as a talented actor, but as a man who had lived through extraordinary times and emerged with his humanity intact. Charles Durning's legacy as both a war hero and a beloved entertainer reminds us that some people are called to serve their country in battle and then spend the rest of their lives serving audiences with their talent, bringing joy and laughter to the world in whatever way they can. Frances Sternhagen brought both strength and tenderness to her role as Marva Potter, Charles Durning's wise and supportive wife in Starting Over, creating a character who represented the kind of stable, loving marriage that Burt Reynolds' recently divorced character was hoping to find again. Her performance as the family matriarch who offers gentle guidance while letting the men in her life figure things out for themselves demonstrated Sternhagen's gift for playing smart, no-nonsense women who could be both nurturing and formidable, a quality that would define many of her most memorable roles throughout her long and distinguished career. Born Frances Hussey Sternhagen on January 13, 1930, in Washington, D.C., she grew up in a family where public service and achievement were highly valued. as her father served as a judge on the United States Tax Court, and her mother had worked as a nurse during World War I. Sternhagen discovered her love of performing early, often entertaining her father, who suffered from Parkinson's disease, by doing impressions of her classmates and teachers, finding that making him laugh brought both of them joy during difficult times. After attending the prestigious Madeira School and graduating from Vassar College with a degree in history, Sternhagen initially planned to pursue a career in education or social work, but a drama professor encouraged her to consider acting professionally after seeing her natural talent and stage presence. She began her career in regional theater, working with companies in Boston and New York, while studying acting technique and building the foundation for what would become a remarkable stage career spanning more than 6 decades. Sternhagen made her Broadway debut in 1955 in The Skin of Our Teeth, and quickly established herself as one of the most reliable and versatile character actresses on the New York stage, earning particular praise for her work in both comedies and dramas. Her breakthrough came in 1974 when she won her first Tony Award for her performance in Neil Simon's The Good Doctor, and she continued to receive Tony nominations throughout the 1970s for her roles in plays like Equus, Angel, and On Golden Pond, where she originated the role of Ethel Thayer that would later be played by Katharine Hepburn in the film version. While Sternhagen was primarily known as a stage actress, her television work brought her to the attention of millions of viewers who might never have seen her on Broadway, particularly through her recurring role as Esther Klavan, the overbearing mother of postal worker Cliff Klavan on the hit sitcom Cheers. Her appearances on the show, which earned her 2 Emmy nominations, showcased her perfect comic timing and her ability to make even the most demanding characters somehow lovable and human. Later in her career, Sternhagen found a new generation of fans through her role as Bunny McDougal, the blue-blooded mother-in-law of Charlotte York on HBO's Sex and the City, where she played a wealthy society matron with such wit and style that viewers looked forward to her every appearance. Her work on the show demonstrated her ability to adapt to changing times while maintaining the dignity and intelligence that had always characterized her performances. Sternhagen died peacefully of natural causes at her home in New Rochelle, New York, on November 27, 2023, at the age of 93, just weeks before what would have been her 94th birthday. She had continued working almost until the end of her life, appearing in films and television shows that benefited from her decades of experience and her unwavering professionalism. Frances Sternhagen's remarkable career serves as a testament to the power of dedication, craft, and the ability to find truth in every character, no matter how large or small the role, proving that great actors can illuminate any story simply by bringing their full humanity to whatever they are asked to do. Alan J. Pakula, director. Alan J. Pakula's direction of Starting Over demonstrated his remarkable ability to bring out the best in every actor who worked with him, guiding Burt Reynolds to one of his most nuanced performances while earning Oscar nominations for both Jill Clayburgh and Candice Bergen through his patient, collaborative approach to filmmaking. Pakula understood that the success of this romantic comedy depended not on flashy camera work or elaborate set pieces, but on creating an atmosphere where his talented cast could explore the real emotions and uncertainties that come with divorce and the hope of finding love again, proving once more why he was considered one of Hollywood's greatest actors-directors. Born Alan J. Pakula on April 7, 1928, in the Bronx to Polish Jewish immigrants, he grew up in a middle-class family where his father ran a successful printing business and hoped his son would eventually take over the company. However, Pakula showed early interest in drama and storytelling, and after graduating from Yale University in 1948 with a degree in drama, he headed to Hollywood with dreams of working in the film industry. starting at the bottom as an assistant in the cartoon department at Warner Brothers, while learning every aspect of movie production. Pakula's break came when he impressed producer Don Hartman, who hired him first as a script reader and then as an assistant producer, giving him valuable experience in development and production that would serve him throughout his career. In 1957, Pakula produced his first film, Fear Strikes Out, starring Anthony Perkins, and began a successful partnership with director Robert Mulligan that would last more than a decade and produce some of the most respected films of the 1960s, including the classic To Kill a Mockingbird in 1962, which earned Pakula his first Oscar nomination for Best Picture. When Pakula decided to try directing himself in 1969 with The Sterile Cuckoo, starring Liza Minnelli, he discovered his true calling and began developing the thoughtful, character-driven style that would define his career. His next film, Klute, in 1971, established him as a major director and began what critics would later call his Paranoia trilogy, a series of psychological thrillers that included The Parallax View and All the President's Men, films that explored themes of corruption, conspiracy, and the abuse of power with a visual style that created an atmosphere of mounting tension and dread. All the President's Men, Pakula's 1976 masterpiece about the Watergate investigation, brought him his only Oscar nomination for Best Director, and demonstrated his ability to turn complex political material into compelling drama, while working with stars like Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. The film's success led to Sophie's Choice in 1982, where Pakula earned his third Oscar nomination, this time for Best Adapted Screenplay, while directing Meryl Streep to her second Academy Award, in a performance that many consider one of the greatest in film history. Throughout his career, Pakula was known for his gentle, encouraging approach to directing, often working without shoes on set and creating an environment where actors felt safe to take risks and explore their characters deeply. He believed that if the technical aspects of filmmaking got in the way of the performances, something was wrong, and he consistently prioritized character development and emotional truth over flashy visual effects or complicated camera movements. On November 19, 1998, Pakula was driving alone on the Long Island Expressway when a 7-foot metal pipe that had been lying in the roadway was struck by another car and sent flying through his windshield, hitting him in the head and causing him to lose control of his vehicle. He was rushed to North Shore Hospital, but died from his injuries at the age of 70. A shocking and seemingly impossible accident that robbed Hollywood of one of its most thoughtful and accomplished filmmakers. Alan J. Pakula's legacy lives on through the 16 films he directed, and the countless actors whose careers were elevated by his patient guidance and deep understanding of human nature, proving that great directors are remembered not just for their technical skills, but for their ability to help others tell stories that matter.